Okay, let's get this show on the road. I'm gonna bring my guest on for in just a second. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Um, this is episode number 2 of the Jeet Kune dialogues. And in just a couple of seconds, my good friend Neil Cauliffe should be logging in and should be sharing the screen with me, and we will get this episode 2 on the way. Just making the connection. Hello, Bo Jackson's here. Victor Jadu, Greg Wilson, Matt. Hey, Manny, what's happening? I think my friend from Barbados, Frank Taylor, was just on, but he might have dropped off when he saw this was a martial art thing. No, there he is, Frank Taylor. Wow, that's cool. Okay, I'm just waiting for Neil to get live. So, in case you guys are wondering, this is the second show that we produce here at I Love Jeet Kune Do. The first one being the weekly broadcast where we talk to, well, no, actually, where I talk to you guys about stuff. And then this second show, the dialogues, this is where I'll be doing, conducting live interviews with my different Jeet Kune Do colleagues. So I'm not sure. Okay, I'll try this again with Neil. Right, and we'll see. On my end, everything seems to be working fine. I'm not sure what's happening on his. Aha! But
is that what you wanted to do?
That's what I wanted you to do since yesterday, my son. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've announced you to everybody while we were waiting for you to come live.
Okay.
But I'll do.
Hello, everybody.
I'll do it again. Right. So everyone, say hello to. This is Sifu Neil Cauliffe. So Neil and I go back to July of 1983. He is what I call my first Jeet Kune Do friend. I think, but 83, Neil, was your second year at CCA.
Yeah, that was when, second year when we were doing the California Martial Arts Academy, yeah.
Right, okay, yeah. So Neil is in terms of training under Sifu Inasano, he's a year senior to me. So I always have to treat him with respect, see? That's that's how
I thought we were going to be honest here today.
Yeah. Right. So so tell everybody, you are, is it correct to say that you are the pioneer or a pioneer of Jeet Kune Do in New York?
Well, I was the first person to, I guess, return Dan Inasano to the East Coast to do seminars.
Okay.
So, I did the first seminar he had on the East Coast in New York City.
Right.
And I think we had one of the largest turnouts. There was over 140 people at that seminar.
Including me. I was there.
Yep, you were there.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then the top JKD schools in the New York City area, right? By my recollection, they all come out. I mean, to a certain degree, come from you. New Breed with Alex and Luigi, that comes from you. Progressive with Nick Sakulas, that comes from you.
I trained Nick, who opened up the second, the associated location after that.
Right.
And Alex and Luigi came after him.
Right.
They were trained by me and by Keith Davis as well.
Oh, okay.
And Keith. So yeah.
Hey, Keith is, I think Keith is in Georgia now.
Yeah, he's doing stunts on stunt choreographing and you know, he's stunting for some of the guys in The Walking Dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I noticed that the other, because he was one of a group of guys that that left their hometowns and went to LA.
Yeah, Keith was with me for quite some time, quite a few years. He was certified through me with Master Chai and Inosanto.
Mm-hmm.
And much later on, when I started to expand and decided to change locations and move to Florida, he went to California to start training a little bit under Inosanto in the Inosanto Academy, and through that got into the stunt work.
Right. So let's go back to New York. We met in '83. I think I came to see you in '84, but I don't remember if you had a place already or if we did stuff in your basement.
Well, the first year, I think I was still teaching a small select group of students in my basement.
Okay.
You know, a closed door group. What had happened was I was teaching a bunch of Kempo students prior who wanted to learn the Kempo from me, you know, prior to me going to train with Inosanto.
Right.
And then after doing some of the Kali sessions, I had decided to kind of change directions there for a while. And a lot of students decided they weren't happy about that. And, you know, I was kind of naive at the time, still young. And I lost a lot of the Kempo students because they weren't really interested in doing my new direction.
Yeah.
But then later on, a little while after that, I decided, when we were together, it was at 1984 when we got certified by Inosanto that year.
No, I got apprentice instructorship in '85. You might have gotten it a year before me, but I got mine in '85.
Yeah, but you were talking. We were sitting in the restaurant and talking to me about the instructorship program. Remember that? And Inosanto turned to me and goes, "Do you want to go? Do you want to become part of the instructor program?" And I looked at him and I said, "Of course, sure." And
was that in New York?
No, we were in California when it happened.
Yeah. So then that
we were at the academy. I think it was one of the years. I think it might have been '84, '85.
Okay.
In the academy, you know, we were just there for the summer.
Right.
And we got certified that year. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. No, I don't know either. But tell us a little bit about that decision to change mode, as it were.
You know, I've been training since 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And always researched Bruce Lee. You know, I was a Bruce Lee fan at the time. You know, he was pretty famous. He was the guy who went against the grain of all the martial artists and all the things that were written prior to Bruce coming, you know, to the forefront.
Right.
And you know, he was kind of a revolutionary.
Right.
I was reading a lot about his history and all that stuff, so I was always following the lineage. And you know, I was still in Kempo when Bruce died, and you know, I had dabbled in some other martial arts. I'd done a little Wing Chun, I did a little Hung Gar Kung Fu, and you know, from some other friends we shared. But I'd always kept an eye on Bruce, you know, and what he wrote and so forth. When he died, I had to go research who was left that could still teach Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
So the name that continually popped up was Dan Inosanto.
Right.
And in 1984, there was a show on TV called Secrets of the Martial Arts.
Uh-huh.
And it was hosted by John Saxon. It was in I think it was on 5 o'clock in the morning in New York on NBC. And I was still going to high school, and I remember having to wake up at like 4:30 to be awake enough to watch the show to see what what was on it, because I knew that Innocente was going to be highlighted.
Right.
So I had never seen actual JKD motion or fighting or any application of what Bruce, only the stuff in the magazines and so forth. So I watched that show, and I saw Innocente tear up this guy with techniques I'd never even seen before or could possibly fathom from the television screen. I think he was training and beating on Jerry Poteet at the time. And, Jerry was there. There was a few people there. Ted Lakai was on the show.
So this was a show where the cameras went to him, or?
No, he went down to the studio. It was a studio production. Okay. About different martial arts, and John Saxon was the host.
Okay.
And it ran for 5 days, and each day there was a different martial art on the show. Now, I'd been training, but I had never seen any of these martial arts, so I decided that, I was very interested. I wanted to see it. And when I saw Dan come out and do the Jeet Kune Do portion, I was blown away. I'd never seen anything like it. First of all, he was this little guy.
Yeah.
And he was fighting on this big white guy, and the results were more than predictable. Right. And it did not look like a choreographed demonstration of martial arts. It looked real. Mm-hmm. Live fighting, and just a completely different envision of martial arts. And it was at that point in time I knew, I said to myself, I got to find this guy and I got to train with him. Okay. And it wasn't until 82, 83 that I found Guru where he was, and then the seminars started, and I had the opportunity. Okay.
So who besides Inosanto has been influence on you in the JKD world?
In the JKD world?
Yeah.
Wow. There's a lot of people who I've trained with, everyone from, in California, when I met Tim Tackett, I met Larry Hartzell. I trained a lot with Larry Hartzell when he was, first doing workshops and seminars. Mm-hmm. That's where I met guys like Rick Fay in those days, the early days. Cass Magda, of course.
You brought Rick and Larry. This is what I remember. You brought Rick and Larry.
My first seminar I ever hosted was in New York, was Larry Hartzell, and he brought Rick Fay as his Uzi to demonstrate.
Yeah.
You were there. I think you came.
Yes.
That day. That seminar.
That was when Rick kneed the Thai pad and cut me in the chest with the buckle.
Yeah, I believe it. We were in different shape in those days.
Yeah.
Much less round, much more lean.
Yeah, it was all different. And then the Cass seminar, you might remember that. I never made it. I never made it to the Cass seminar because I was in a car accident that morning.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that, and we learned the traditional numerato.
That's it.
Yep. From the Ville Braille system.
Yep.
And
you also brought Pendekar Paul de Toires to New York.
I did. I started as soon as I met Pendekar Paul I met him at Cass. I met him at Cass's wedding. If you remember, on the steps of the church.
Yeah.
And then Dan Timlin hosted him in a seminar in Michigan, where I really got to know him. And I started promoting his system in New York. Well, though I was never like a complete certified instructor under him. I was only an apprentice. I practiced and trained under him. I hosted him for many seminars as well. So I've hosted Dan. I've hosted Cass, Hartzell. I even had Bastillo. I've had trained with Bastillo. I trained with
them.
Yeah, we definitely did a lot with Salem and the Savat program. Obviously, Master Chai, a ton of training with Master Chai, and then in the Filipino martial arts, Joni Cañete and and Don Cuesta.
But you
and
trained for a while privately with Tom Bizzio in Pikiti Tertia, didn't you?
almost 2 years I trained directly under Tom Bizzio.
See, that's why I always envied and hated you.
Yeah, well, Leo Guy, he left New York in the early 70s. I forgot where. I think he was back. He used to travel a lot, but he was stationed in New York for a while. Yeah. And he trained 4 students: Billy McGrath, Tom Bizzio, what was his name? Greg Allen.
Greg Allen, yeah.
And you know, my student. Oh my God. Just went his name.
The only other person I remember from back in is Bujin Mateen, but he was down here in Florida. It wasn't.
Yes, he came back down here, right?
Yeah, I know who you mean, but I can't remember his name either. God.
Oh my God, it'll come to me.
Okay.
So the 4 of them were like his main 4 guys.
Right.
And Jim Curtin.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Jim Curtin became a student of mine after I started training with Inasano. Now, I had no idea that he was one of the 4 aces of Leo Guy at the time. He never told me.
Right.
And he never showed me any of his Pikiti Tertia while he was training with me. And we became close friends. He said I did some other stuff. He's on, Jim Curtin is on that, the Warrior Within video, doing staff work. But, he's a young kid.
Yeah.
And when I met him, he was already an older man, So there was no, I never put the connection together, and he never told me until Inasano said, I know you want to expand your Filipino training. I had already met Don Cuesta and the Dos Apars group.
Right.
Because maybe you want to talk to this guy. This is the top student of Leo Gahi. And he might be able to, continue my training in different areas of Filipino martial arts. So I ended up training 2 years with Tom and learning his method of Pikiti Tertia.
Okay. So, okay, I got a blast from the past. I got to show you something, and you tell me if you remember what this is.
If I can see it on this little screen.
Yeah, and if I can hold it the right way. Do you remember what that is?
I can't really make it out. What?
Okay.
It looks like a P or something.
It's a big C and a small P. Then
yes, I know.
Size. Do you remember what that is? No. Nope. This was dietary advice that you gave me in California one time.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I see. Oh, is that during the Ethiopian days?
Do you remember Vunak when we had a private lesson with Vunak?
Oh, I forgot about Paul. Yeah, I trained with Paul too.
Yeah, we had a private lesson with Vunak, and his recommendations were, he pointed at me. He goes, "You get some size on. You lose some size."
Yeah, I do remember that. We were training in his backyard.
Yeah.
And what's his name was there? The head of the Dub Brothers, Mark Denny was there in those days.
Yeah, and
we trained with a lot of people, Dwight. Chris Kent, Cass, all those guys from the early days. We were there before guys like Chad Stelsky and Damien Caro. Heck, we were there when Joel came into the studio.
I remember being at the Inasano Academy and leaning over and whispering to Burton Richardson that Damon Bird gonna be good. That right, because we were watching this kid, right? And I go, that kid's gonna be good, right? Okay, so yeah.
But
so this
Bert, Bert was also he was there at the first seminar I hosted in New York. He came from California. I met Bert then.
Yep.
And I gave Bert his first seminar as well.
Okay.
He did. I introduced him to the workshop circuit, so to speak, and helped him in his school as well in California.
All right. So now over there in New York, and you came down to Florida in what year? Do you remember?
When I moved down to Florida? Yeah. 96.
Okay. All right. So in the mid to late 80s, when the whole Jeet Kune Do controversy stuff started, like the original Jeet Kune Do and the Jeet Kune Do concept stuff and what have you, what I don't think you and I have ever talked about that. What did you make of all of that? Did it have any effect on what you were doing and how things were going at your school?
It didn't affect me directly at the school, but I remember seeing an article in one of the magazines about the JKD nucleus, if I remember correctly, or about original JKD. Right? So, of course, I called up Paula or Dan at the time, and I asked them, I said, what the heck is this? And, they explained to me what the organization, was trying to accomplish. But I always got the feeling that it really, kind of irked Guru because, he, I think it kind of hurt him because they didn't want to, use his name or let people know that it was actually him who taught them at the time that they discussed. Mm-hmm. The late 60s, when they were first training with Bruce a little bit, and
yeah,
but mostly it was Guru and Asano teaching the classes,
yeah,
and it really, I think it kind of gave him a sour note that they were trying to break away from him or not be affiliated or associated with him. But everyone who was associated at the time, the real people who had been training at the school and so forth, they knew they were all trained by Asano. So, but they were trying to keep it pure as far as what Bruce actually taught.
Right.
So that was their drive. And during that time, there was a lot of controversy about Sifu and Asano adding other martial arts and Kali and so on, and washing out the JKD. But we know that that's not true because he always taught, and when he taught, he explained what was always separated.
Yeah.
He never gave he never didn't give credit where credit was due as to what this is and what that is. He might have compared Kali and Jun Fan a few times and showed examples like that.
Yeah.
But he knew the difference and always taught it as pure or not. So it kind of bothered him that they were kind of wanting to change that connotation that this is original JKD and what he does is conceptual JKD or something like that.
Yeah.
What we know so.
What so now, what would you say okay, let me think of a better way of expressing it. All right, if you can, what does Jeet Kune Do mean to you? That might be too general a question, but see if you can all right, let's do it this way. In the early days, when you made the decision to go see an Asano, at that time in your life, what did Jeet Kune Do mean to you?
Okay, Jeet Kune Do in my mind, because like I said, I had only read about it, and I had never seen the actual combative application of it or how it was used or taught. I didn't know what the training method was. I didn't know what kind of techniques it had. Then I saw that little show, excuse me, and I saw that there was a lot to it that I had no clue about. So first of all, it was very mysterious. It was still a mysterious kind of art. It was the art everyone heard about, whispered or backdoor, and no one really knew what it entailed.
Right.
Then when I saw that the seminars were being taught for Filipino martial arts in Kali, I'd never heard of Kali. I didn't care what this Kali stuff was. At the time, it was a doorway I thought that I could possibly get to meet Guru and Asano, and maybe if we can develop a friendship or a relationship, he might show me some Jeet Kune Do, some of this secret stuff. Right. So, I said, whatever the Kali is, I'll learn it. And then, of course, when I saw Kali, I fell in love with it. It was just amazing martial art and, so complete and so fluid. I was like, Jesus, why haven't I been doing this my whole life? That's how I felt. And then I almost forgot about Jeet Kune Do until in that first workshop, Dan had demonstrated some relationship drills between Jun Fan, Empty Hands, and Kali Empty Hands. And that was it. I was sold. I understood that the grasp of his knowledge was way, way, way beyond anyone who had trained or I had seen in a singular martial art. And I have seen some great martial artists. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting anyone down or any other art down. I think all martial arts are good. They all have something to offer. But I realized that this guy was a different level, knowledge-wise, historically, and his ability to blend and understand the arts. And he had been through so many different instructors in martial arts that he was a different animal. And after my first seminar, I knew that I would always train under this.
Okay.
Hello.
And
okay.
No,
You're breaking.
no,
You're breaking up.
Then, yeah. Huh?
Your audio is breaking up.
Oh, okay. It'll fix itself. So,
Okay.
all right. This is 30-something years. We're gonna see him in Jacksonville in June.
Yes.
Right. So you told us what Jeet Kune Do meant to you back then. So now you've started your school. Okay. Does the meaning of Jeet Kune Do change at all now that you have, let's call it commercial concerns? Because you've gone into business, you're teaching martial art full time, right? Yeah. Is there a change in meaning?
Yeah. As I developed in studying the art, I found that Bruce was pretty smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't just throw a piece of this together and a piece of that and call it Jeet Kune Do. The research he did in the different arts and the practice he did in the different arts to see what worked for him and how it could be incorporated. Mm-hmm. He had already been modifying his martial arts system, right? So we know he's gone through the phases of Jun Fan Wing Chun, Jun Fan kickboxing Kung Fu, Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. Well, Bruce put together a foundation of Jun Fan first. When people talk about learning Jeet Kune Do, you can't just take the principles and concepts of Jeet Kune Do and teach them to someone who's untrained. You can try to explain them to them, but it's very hard when they have no skills, where they cannot perform drills and execute technical aspect just because you have the understanding of the concept of Jeet Kune Do. So Bruce put together the Jun Fan Foundation, right? And the Jun Fan Foundation is a progression of training like every other martial art. And I used that as the basis of my, you want to call it a commercial school. I don't think it's a commercial school. It's only one location, and I teach students out of it. Gura Inasanto directed me to do whatever necessary to make the program work for me. In other words, you want to put belts on, you want to wear uniforms, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. He gave us permission to adjust the material as we felt it was needed to be adjusted to get across to the public, and to put on whatever kind of, uniform structure, we desired. He said, it doesn't matter. That's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. If this works for you, then fine, use it and pass it on to your students in this respect. So what I did was I took the 4 stages of Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do development and broke them up into a ranking system from very, very beginner level 1 all the way up to the Jun Fan.
Let me interrupt you. When you say the 4 stages, what do you mean the 4 stages?
Well, like there's a beginner stage of Jun Fan drills. There's an intermediate stage of Jun Fan drills, and then there's more advanced training. Okay. And after you got into the advanced class, you were able to go into the Jeet Kune Do class, which we consider the 4th level. Okay. So that was the way it was at the academy. Right. I kind of modeled my program after that, but I did put in a belt system, and uniforms and so forth, T-shirts and the whole 9 yards. But I didn't change the material. I just used a different way of breaking up the drilling, the Jun Fan base. Yeah. And so all the drills are the same. All the material that's taught in, the foundation for learning Jeet Kune Do, it's all in the program. So if it affected me now, I would say that it is now the base of what I teach in my academy from beginner to black belt level or senior level, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
While you were in New York, your place was called New York Martial Arts Academy. It wasn't called American Dragon, right?
No.
American Dragon was the Florida name.
Yes, when I opened up the school in Florida, I changed the name because I had sold my schools to old students, and I didn't want to take away from um, that program and
Right.
that area.
That's the other.
So
That's the other school that comes from you. Isn't it still
yes,
called New York Martial Arts Academy in Long?
New York Martial Arts is still open. It's Dino Orfanos, and
Right.
he's got a pretty good program right there working, in New York City as well.
Yeah.
So I have Dino, I have, like I said, Nick Sakulis, I have Alex and Luigi,
Yeah.
and also
What
Greg
about
Pichardo. Greg Pichardo's was my student
That's
for many years,
right. Yeah.
and he went in the direction of the Silat only.
Right.
And now is under Cas Magda and teaching Penjak Silat in New York. So there's there's four locations, 4 different programs in New York that all were either developed under me or progressed from my training to their locations.
Okay.
Though I made many other student instructors through the Inasano Academy, not all of them continued to pursue, teaching.
Yeah. Any major differences between teaching JKD up in New York versus teaching down here in Florida?
Well, I hate to say different, but I think when I was in New York, I was younger and a hardcore program. And I had a lot of young men who wanted to really learn to handle themselves and fight.
Yeah.
So my schools in New York were more of a combative direction.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be 60 years old this year. And my school in Florida is more family oriented and younger kids. Not as many hardcore teens.
Right.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. But that's the makeup of the schools. But what about your makeup? Because are you teaching anything differently? Did the idea behind how to teach Jeet Kune Do, did that change or evolve?
I mean, we had to modify the delivery more.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, the language changed a little when you're talking to an 8-year-old as opposed to an 18-year-old, and the emphasis changes for younger children. More the emphasis on the tenets of the martial arts, what the martial arts, can help for children's development, socialization, and so forth. And they're interactive in community. Whereas in New York, it was more of a fighting group, more of a hardcore conditioning and combative workshop.
Mm-hmm.
But, definitely much. I have moms training on the floor. I have young kids from 5 and 6 years old, which I never really had many of in New York. Though I did have kids.
Right.
But and many of the kids were sons and daughters of students already in the program who wanted their kids to come and train. So I opened the doors for that as well. But down here, we have children and adults, all levels, all age groups, all sizes and shapes. It doesn't matter if you're 6 or 60. It doesn't matter if you're overweight to start with or not, or if you're in great shape or not. Yeah. We're not a top team school where everything is based on like fighting and like you want to get them in the ring and get them in competition. We're more of a self-defense based orientation through the use of Bruce Lee's, Jun Fan kickboxing. So,
okay. So is there anything about the New York approach that you miss?
Well, yeah, I always missed, putting a group together, a good set of fighters. I mean, even Keith Davis, when he was training with me, wanted to fight, He had he had a few eye-opening experiences in the beginning prior to me taking him under my wing to get him, fight ready in the beginning. And then, of course, he progressed and moved beyond me.
Right.
Keith is an excellent practitioner. And one of the exponents that came out of the New York school. I don't have many of those down here in Florida because that's not the direction, you know.
Yeah, but you got a bunch of
schools.
You got a bunch of New Yorkers, a bunch of displaced New York. I came to your party. You got a bunch of New Yorkers still hanging around you.
Yeah, it's funny, they don't, the ones that make it through the program that have been with me for more than a few years, they don't want to leave. They're here forever.
Yes.
Then you have some new guys. The program. One of the things I'd found out was my program in the beginning was so different and so aggressive that people would train for 6 to 8 months, get really good, gain the foundation, learn the techniques, and they felt they didn't need anymore, and so they left right away.
Yeah.
They didn't get beyond that kind of level. But now, when I have students who stick it out, go through the the calluses and the blood, sweat, and tears to make it all the way up to the senior level.
Yeah.
They tend to stick around. They love it. It's in their skin too.
Well,
when I started, after I'd seen Asano on that show, I had such a burning desire that I had to learn what this man taught.
Right.
You don't find that very often in students who are coming in for an occasional, new thing in their lives, a new direction, like martial arts. Oh, I'm going to take martial arts lessons. It's like I'm going to take tennis lessons. It's just something they want to do. It's not a burning desire like I had it, when I first started to research and made a decision as to what I wanted.
Do you think that
it's hard to bring them through that?
Do you think that Jeet Kune Do has, this is something I've been asking myself, do you think Jeet Kune Do has a built-in, almost self-destructive clause in that it left alone, right? Sans any type of modification, it is something that fighters will be attracted to, but then they're not going to stick around for much longer than feeling accomplished.
It's the philosophy, I believe, that Bruce had instilled in it in the beginning that made it, he wanted to be the perfect specimen. He
right.
5 hours a day training and so on. He wanted to be the best fighter he could ever be. And because of that, his direction in the way he presented it in the early days was, you are more important than any individual style or established system and so forth. As he developed, you and I both know that Bruce wanted other things out of life as well. Even in some of his letters and some of his goal sheets, he wanted money, he wanted fame, he wanted fortune, he wanted to spread the word, that his art was good and here's why, His direction started to change a little bit. We were very unfortunate in the way that, he left us too early, and we hadn't seen the full development of him, we'll say just in his martial art area.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see him 10 more years developing and adjusting JKD.
Yeah.
Now, we're very lucky in the fact that his #1 training partner continued research, continued expanding his knowledge of other martial arts, but using the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do as far as the art philosophy itself, absorb what is useful, etc. So, we were very lucky with that because Guru was an excellent exponent in modifying and adding what was useful.
Right.
And being willing to change. I still see guys, in the schools teaching the martial art exactly as it was taught to them, 50 years ago. So some of that stuff is outdated. I won't say it's not right. It's just it's outdated. It's like using the first cellular phone. It was this big. Now we have these. There's no reason to use those when we have a modern phone. There is a time and a place to expand and adjust what's needed, and with the technology for today, especially. Heck, every piece of information is at your fingertips. I didn't have videos from Dan and Asano when I learned how to train Jeet Kune Do and Kali.
Right.
I had to go home and look at my notes.
No, you had to go home.
Remember drills, because I had no teacher.
Yeah.
I just had myself.
Did you hear what I said? You have to go home and look
No,
at
sorry.
my notes.
Yeah, your notes.
Right.
Let's say our notes. Because I think it was my memory and your handwriting.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, because you picked this stuff up, and I credit that to your years spent in Kempo doing all those wacky sort of death motions and what have you. You would pick the stuff up like the first go around, and and so you would do it on me, and then I would go to write it down, and then I would come to do it on you, and Inosana would be moving on already.
Yeah. It was funny. It was a hard environment to actually absorb all the stuff that was given, because we were giving, I mean, we were getting so much material so quickly, and we didn't have recording devices. We didn't have, video cameras. We didn't, everything was pen and paper and blood and sweat.
Yeah.
That was the way it was.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of funny now, they just hold up their cell phone and record everything, and I got it. I don't need to worry. I go home and write it and review.
Yeah. So we've got there's a few people on here watching who I think they run their own schools or they have their own training groups. So what's a piece of advice that you would have for somebody who's running his or her own school now?
The only thing I could tell you is to try to identify exactly what you want to accomplish in your program. And once you have what the end result should look like, you have to work backwards from there to make it happen. And it's hard because you have to make decisions, and you have to give and take a little bit to decide just what it is you're looking to accomplish as a final product. But once you get that vision in your head as a final product, then work backwards, put into effect what's needed to make that happen, and don't be afraid to change. I had a good friend from Michigan. You both know me and you know Dan Timlin.
Yeah.
And Dan Timlin came to me, and he wanted me to, when I first opened my school, use belts. And I was like, oh, I want to be a JKT school like, Bruce Lee. There's no belts. I can't use belts. It goes against the philosophy and everything.
Right.
But once I changed the curriculum and broke it down to that type of a system, a progressive system, I saw great results. I was banging my head against the wall, fighting against a little thing that had no meaning. And now I laugh because when I go into Inosana school, recently I saw them, they put a belt system into their college program or their I was laughing. And Dan comes running across the floor to me. I walk in, and he looks at me and says, I know, they're wearing belts, but I told you could wear belts. Whatever it takes to make it work, as long as you have a vision of what it is you want to accomplish.
But somebody's going to tell you that, somebody's going to say that, yeah, that's all well and good, but there are certain things in Jeet Kune Do that can never be done.
Like what?
Like belts.
Yeah, well, that's their opinion. If the head honcho's telling me I can do it, who are they to tell me I can't?
Okay.
I trained by him. He was trained by Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I'll listen to him.
Okay. All right. Well, then, just welcome all the criticism that comes along with that. All right.
Well, thank you for opening that book of work.
Yeah, there you go. Where in the world has your Jeet Kune Do adventure taken you?
Oh, everywhere. I've been all over. I've been all over. I've been in Mexico. I've been in Canada. I've been all through the United States. I've been in Europe, France, England, Belgium. I've trained and traveled and demonstrated and taught classes, and I've taught in the academy itself. I mean, and it started the very first academy you and I were in the Torrance Academy. So from that beginning, we've been everywhere, almost everywhere.
Did you and Salem go to Egypt together one time?
I did not go to Egypt with Salem. I went to Europe with Salem.
Okay. Yeah, so you just mentioned that Saturday afternoon that we spent at the Kali Academy in Torrance. And
Yeah.
earlier on, you said something, the blood, sweat, and the blood and sweat, of the 1980s. Do you sense a difference in the type of student that's out there now that's getting the material in the 90s and in the 2000s?
I think the environment
And
has
when I say
changed.
student,
That's
how do you mean?
Well, if you remember correctly, when we walked into the Torrance Academy and we walked around, we stood by the railing and we looked at all the stuff. We saw the the photo of Bruce on the, where they bowed when they bowed into class, the mukjang, at first there was like it almost felt like a presence of Bruce but I'd never met him. So I didn't know what the feeling should be like. But in that academy, I kind of have to say that was like the closest I had ever felt to, being in his presence and training under his thumb. In Asano's second school and third school as well, still had that kind of feeling. But now, in the newer schools, the newer instructors that are teaching, that it's a different flavor in their school than those original locations. I don't know how else to put it. You know what I mean? I think that was the only difference. It might have been our appreciation of the location or our reverence of the location, but I would say that I no longer feel like that when I'm in different schools that teach Jeet Kune Do. But the material is the same. It hasn't changed.
Right. I get a feeling of reverence, to be honest with you, in the front room of New Breed in New York.
Okay.
But that might just be my envy of their sense of decoration.
Cool.
It's a gorgeous school, right? And I wouldn't know how to make a school gorgeous, if you paid me, right?
I like their school too. I like Nick Schoolis' school very, very much.
Yeah.
That's a hot number these days to go there, and that still Nick still has my original flair. He still does workshops. He still brings in a lot of cross training from different disciplines, and he's got a good group. He's got a good group of instructors there.
Yeah.
Kind of happy about how that fell not too far from the tree.
Now, what do you miss most about New York? Not New York, JK. Not just as a New Yorker.
The food.
Really?
That's about it. And I miss my brother who lives there.
Okay. Well, I remember when we went to you. It was because of you that you're actually responsible for a lot of the degenerate behavior that I ever engaged in.
Right? Yes, it was my fault you had degenerate behavior.
Yeah. You introduced me to Chinese food, right? General Cho's chicken, right? Wherever it was that we went to. But I that made me think of something, because I remember your dad was in the jewelry business.
Yes.
And you were also.
For 9 years, yeah.
Right. So when and how did the decision to go full-time martial art, how did that come about?
Okay, well, I was working in the jewelry field for quite some time, and I felt that my training, I wasn't getting enough training because I was working 9 to 5, and I was married. So I decided to open a very, very small location in 1983, 84. And I asked Inosanto if I can teach what I know in those, during those times.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to have a very small group. I don't want a big commercial school. I don't want to spend a lot of money. And I got a 16 by 60 long storefront that had a partition in the front for like a little office area, a partition in the back to the bathroom, and a floor that was like 20 by 15. And I put a little hand-painted sign in the window that I'm going to be teaching, Kempo and Kali in the school, and some, and train, and who I was trained by. I wrote it into the thing. Well, here I'm going to work in the mornings, 9 to 5, doing jewelry. And at night, I'm going at 7 o'clock to the school till about 9, Monday through Friday, teaching classes. And in like 2 months, I had a waiting list of people who wanted to come and train in the school.
Right.
Because they knew I was legit. And people wrote in Asano, made phone calls to find out who this guy was, this Neil Cauliffe guy. Is he real? Is he trained? And I mean, literally, they were like, testing me. I thought I thought I was going to get challenged once by these 2 brothers who came into the school, but I just blitzed in the school one time, and they were watching me, and then they were very happy, and they signed up.
Yeah.
So, so the school grew itself. Like, I wasn't even advertising. But word of mouth in the Marshall community started, and people were coming to me, and it got to the point I had to double the size of the unit, and then I tripled the size of the unit, and that was too small. I had to move into another location about a mile away from where I was and open up my big school, the 95-foot by 27, the first one, before I moved over to the corner, So it just built itself up, and even without me trying to promote it.
Right. Now, that all went on, in my experience, what you just described there, where a JKD Kali school grew on its own because of the level of interest. To me, all of that changed in 1993 with UFC 1.
93. Okay.
Yeah, right. One of the ways I look at it is that in 93, all of a sudden, Jeet Kune Do got uprooted as the revolutionary avant-garde approach to martial arts. Did you feel anything similar? Anything?
Yeah, I did. The mixed martial art world came into play. And, I hate to say something negative about the JKD community, but the problem was it wasn't rallied together as a coherent unit that could stand on its own as an organization. It was always the individual school here, the individual school there. No one affiliated. No one wanted to come together and bring the program together.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mixed martial art world broke out, and it kind of overran us as far as like the first original blended mixed martial art program,
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have a figurehead that wanted that kind of, I don't want to say responsibility, but that kind of direction. He didn't want to go in that direction.
Yeah.
He was more about, what he taught and the way he was. So, because it was subdued by then, Bruce had been dead now.
That was
20 years,
Yeah.
So his name had diminished. Even what went on behind the scenes, the lawsuits and all the crap about the logos and all, it put down the JKD exposure and allowed like us to be rolled over by the mixed martial art group. But the funny thing about that is all the senior instructors, all the guys who taught the top fighters, all came from the JKD group.
Right.
Eric Paulson,
Yeah.
Greg Nelson, those guys are all JKD guys.
Yeah.
Who trained there,
Yeah.
It's kind of like the movies now. In every movie, you see all the Kali and you see all the Jeet Kune Do, and we know where all that came from,
Well, yeah.
Chad's now a full director, and, he directed the John Wick movies and all that stuff. That's straight from Minnesota.
Yeah, in all seriousness, right? That's one of the reasons why we started the I Love Jeet Kune Do stuff on Facebook, because you just described 2 arenas in which Jeet Kune Do is actually alive and well,
Oh yeah.
but hidden.
Right. Because they're not.
Right.
There's no forefronted organization. You
Yeah.
would never know that Chad Stelsky and Damien Caro, who are huge in the the stunt business and in the choreographing and now directing, were from Inosanto, because the organization doesn't promote who's affiliated, who's in charge of that.
I'll tell you.
That I would say is the only sad lacking area.
Yeah.
Of the program, because if it did, then people would have a completely different approach and recognition of the accomplishments.
So in the same way that using belts is frowned upon, and it's something that we're not supposed to do. Bruce Lee famously said, Jeet Kune Do is not an organization of which one can be a member.
Right, because it's always about the individual.
Right. So there'd be resistance to that also.
Of course.
But are you saying, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, are you saying that some kind of formal organization, because it's been tried, but some kind of formal organization might be attempted again, should be attempted again, could be attempted again?
I'm not for or against. If it came to power, came to be,
yeah,
I would be more than happy to help in promotion, as I've done through the years of promoting students to become Inosanto instructors and so forth.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's just the way of the world. It won't change what we do, Dwight. What me and someone like you do now,
right?
Or someone like any of these other instructors from Bert down to Cass down to it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're going to do what they're going to do anyway. It might have been nice if there was a registry or a recording of who was where, when, and when they trained and so forth. Now I do know that Sifu Inosanto himself, he holds years and years of registration of all students who've taken his training. Mm-hmm. So he knows pretty much that if someone out of the blue in the middle of the country said, yeah, I'm a Jeet Kune Do instructor, that I was trained by so-and-so and so-and-so, well, if it's not on the list that he still has, we know it's not true. And remember in the beginning, so many of those other names that were being popularized as Jeet Kune Do guys really never trained with Bruce or never really trained with Guru Inosanto, and kind of just got like a little taste here and there and proclaimed themselves instructors.
Yeah.
There is an instructor organization with a list of names. Of course, Inosanto hosts that. But he also hosts names of everyone who's ever been to his seminars. He keeps those records. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I guess at this point, if that's enough for the organization to prosper, that's fine.
Yeah. If
we need to expand it, I'm all for it. Either way, I'm always going to be a JKD student under Guru Dan, and I know you are as well. We always promote him. We always, believed in how much he helped us. That gave me my livelihood for 40 years.
Right.
Okay.
So in wrapping up here, I thought about this when we were talking about, the LA crowd and what have you. Have you had celebrity students? I can't remember.
I've had a few people who've come through the doors. Yeah.
Anybody that you can, did you sign? Or you like one of them Stormy Daniels non-disclosure agreement?
No. No. I trained the deputy mayor of New York. I trained an ex-district attorney of New York. I trained a lot of people in the infrastructure of in New York City. I've throughout the years met and trained a lot of people. Not too many celebrities like movie stars or TV stars, mm-hmm. but guys in sports. I trained Mike Fox privately for a while during the years that the Giants were contesters for the Super Bowl. I've trained met and trained a lot of people.
Right.
Like that. But that kind of thing doesn't sway me one way or another. If you're a student, you want to learn, you come in, you show me you're dedicated, I train you.
Right.
I take no one at face value, only at the way they treat myself and the school.
Yeah.
So they're on board, I'll teach them.
Yeah. I bring it up because it's enough to me. It's another one of those areas in which Jeet Kune Do thrives, but nobody knows about it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. So
I think they're doing that. Aren't they doing some kind of movie about Inosanto training the cowboys or something soon?
I heard.
Did you hear about
something? I heard something about that. Yeah, through Dr. Bob Ward and what have you. Right. Yeah, I did hear something about that.
I heard that they're making some kind of like documentary for that section of time in the NFL.
Okay. All right. I'm going to make this the last question before we wrap up here, my friend. What do you
Sounds good.
The least about New York?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Broke up on my end.
What do you miss the least about New York?
Well, when I was there, the traffic and the filth. It was a pretty filthy city. After I got to see it, after I started traveling around and seeing just how nice some other cities were, I never realized just, how dirty New York was and how bad the traffic was. It was a horrendous drive all the time and no parking. And I'm very glad I'm out of that. I don't have to look forward to coming home and looking for parking for 20 minutes before I get in my house. So yeah, that to me is a really big perk of it down here.
All right. Cool. Okay. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you, my friend. All right.
Hey, my brother. Always a pleasure.
All right.
Stay sharp.
Yeah.
Watch what you say. It always comes back to haunt you.
I'll take that under advisement. All right, everyone.
Everyone watching.
Thanks very much.
Be well.
For chiming in with us. Episode 2 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. Stay tuned. I'll send out word on who we'll be talking to next Friday. And remember, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. is the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Everybody up.
I just have one question for you. Does this get posted on your website now after?
So this will end up ultimately we'll leave it on Facebook, but ultimately it will end up video-wise on the YouTube and then audio-wise on SoundCloud. That's the direction we're taking these in. All right. Okay.
Sounds great.
Everyone, great weekend, and I'll check in with you next week. Take care.
Take care, sir.